It seems like anyone who knew Cale Yarborough can recall a story to describe his toughness. Some of them come off relatively simple, just the fact that he could handle the heat in the car better than any of his competitors. Others, a little more hardcore. Heck, everyone knows the fight after the 1979 Daytona 500 when Yarborough appeared willing to take on both the Allison brothers at the same time. And some other stories, just plain funny, having nothing to do with driving the race car and everything to do with just a love of competition from someone who played semi-pro football and also boxed. The sign of an athlete who loves the game and loves the contact. But who needs stories when you have the king, Richard Petty, to explain Cale Yarborough's toughness as he did to me earlier this year at the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Of all the drivers that I've driven all my life, Cale was the toughest, okay? And it didn't make any difference if it was a lap ahead or 2 laps behind. He ran just as dadgum hard as he could every lap. He was just a tough son of a gun and never give up. You know, he didn't have no neck on him. He didn't get tired. He always in shape to do what the car could do. I'll put him up against anybody.
Born into the gritty and hot world of tobacco farming in South Carolina, Yarborough as a kid snuck into Darlington Raceway, an incredible NASCAR track just about 20 miles from where he grew up. In his late teens, he lied about his age to race at Darlington, but NASCAR officials parked him once they determined he didn't meet the minimum age for that track. He wouldn't need to sneak into the Darlington garage for long, and the garage now bears his name thanks to his 5 Darlington victories. As NASCAR teams race at the track Too Tough to Tame this weekend, thoughts will go to Yarborough, who died December 31st at age 84. Too tough to tame. Those words also could describe Yarborough. When he first got into NASCAR racing, the asphalt stuff provided a little bit of a challenge for a driver who learned to race on dirt tracks in South Carolina. But once things started to click, he used his talent and his perseverance to thrive. It should have surprised no one. You kids don't know, but dude taught himself how to fly an airplane.
Talk about people working hard and doing whatever they have to do to make it, and Cale Yarborough was that. He was never going to give up, and he raced for every inch on the racetrack, every single race. I mean, every lap. He raced it like it was the last lap.
How bad did Yarborough want to race? He moved to Charlotte to sweep floors for Holman Moody in hopes of landing a job as a race car driver. Yarborough said that when offered the chance to work in racing for a living, he jumped at it because, as he put it, working in the back of the fields in that hot sun would make you want to do something else. Yarborough would need that experience in the fields in the sweltering sun later in his career.
I remember going to Nashville Fairgrounds for a cup race, and we used to race there in May and July. And you talking about the hottest place on the face of the earth. Nashville, Tennessee, inside that Fairgrounds Speedway in July. And I remember we were parked real close to the 11 car. 2 or 3 hour practice, it must have been 90 degrees, and Cale never got out of that race car. He'd go out and he'd make a practice run, and he'd come and just sit in it, just sit in that car. He never got out. It had to be 130, 140 degrees inside that car, especially when it was just sitting still in the garage area. But that man, he put a whole new meaning to tough, trust me.
Rarely in those days did a driver's fame and influence go beyond their local area, but even out in California, people knew Cale Yarborough. He made impact on future racers, including one of the greatest to ever compete in NASCAR.
My dad was a Cale fan, and he was just this bigger-than-life man. I mean, he was just a strong, muscly guy that got it done. Everyone on television respected him.
Everyone respected Yarborough as he quickly proved to be a winner. He captured 13 races in the 1970s for the Wood brothers, and when Ford pulled out of NASCAR, Yarborough learned a new style of racing. He drove an IndyCar for a year. He had already competed in the Indianapolis 500 a couple of times, and he finished 10th in the 1972 race. He returned to NASCAR in 1973, and things really got going for him in stock cars as he teamed with famed driver-turned-owner Junior Johnson. They won 9 races together their first season, and he won a combined 14 races and finishing second in the standings in back-to-back years. In 1976, he started an incredible stretch of winning 28 races on his way to 3 consecutive Cup championships. No driver had won 3 consecutive titles until Yarborough. and that record stood for 30 years until Jimmy Johnson won 5 consecutive titles from 2006 to 2010. When Johnson won his 3rd title, Yarborough met Johnson on the banquet stage, and in true Yarborough fashion, he said,
"Tied really is all he's done, so boy, you got some work to do."
I really enjoyed his speech when he mentioned that I just tied him. You know, when I was a kid, he was one of the guys that I looked up to, and to tie him at that moment and share the stage and have him be there in person, it really meant a lot to me from a personal level.
Cale Yarborough, he could deliver a zinger to you, and yet you still liked him for that tough-as-nails style. That style came through both on and off the track.
At Daytona, we'd all stay over on the beach, and there were only so many bridges and so many roads to get to the racetrack. And the road I chose came and crossed the railroad tracks, and just before it crossed the tracks, it narrowed from 2 lanes going westbound to 1. And I got a good jump at the light on Ridgewood, US 1, and I'm headed for that railroad track, and I think I'm gonna beat the car next to me, and I'm gonna edge over in front of him, and I look over, and it was Cale. I got on the brakes so fast you wouldn't believe it, because I knew he was not gonna give me that lane. That's just who he was, all the time.
After his driving career, Yarborough became an owner. He didn't have the success he won as he couldn't win in his own car, and he openly wondered what he could have accomplished if he continued to drive for other owners. Could he have won more than 83 races? For sure. Yarborough was a successful businessman in other ventures, and he probably had a different persona as an owner than he employed as a driver. Let's hear from one of his first drivers, Dale Jarrett.
Thankfully, he wasn't as tough an owner as he was a driver, because he was maybe the toughest driver that I had the chance to race against and be around and watch. You know, I watched him, race against my dad, and then to have the opportunity to race against him and then to drive for him was just incredible.
The tough guy, that Cale Yarborough, actually served as a mentor for Jarrett. And who wouldn't want to have a mentor whose win total still ranks tied for 6th all time? His 69 poles rank him 4th.
It was just amazing to have the opportunity to see him in a different light as one that, as my time with him as a driver, as he was retiring from his driving career, to have someone like that to lean on. My dad helped me a lot, but I'm sure there were things that my dad didn't say that Cale Yarborough would say to me, because I wasn't his son, but he wanted to help me be a better driver.
You kids might know Yarborough had a tough exterior and grit, but you probably didn't know he also had an open mind. While other drivers reacted skeptically, Yarborough embraced allowing his car to carry an in-car camera for television, and he even wanted to talk on the telecast during the race. He had a personality. Yarborough told the story at his Hall of Fame induction about going to the grocery store on a limited budget and only buying cans and cans of black-eyed peas because the store had them on sale and he could stock up on the cheap. That story exemplifies why this working-class sport adored Yarborough so much. The fans could relate to him. He didn't drive for just one team, he drove for several, going with the job that seemed best for him. And when it came on whether to continue racing full-time or part-time later in his career, while still in his prime, he chose part-time to spend more days with his family. After all, he had won 3 championships. And running part-time certainly didn't stop his winning ways, as he took home 14 more trophies, with 2 more wins in the Daytona 500. He increased his total of wins in the Great American Race to 4, second only to Richard Petty. He entered the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2012.
I want him to remember me as a guy that gave it his all, gave it his best every single lap that I ever ran, and gave him the money's worth. I gave him all I had.
Hey race fans, thanks for watching our video. For all NASCAR on Fox News, content, and the best clips from Fox Sports, be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel.